Get off your knees, ref. You're blowing the game. You missed about 7 calls for us and you're gonna take all the blame. We might be winning if you hadn't noticed the teams are not the same. Get off your knees, referee, you're blowing the game. I'm not sure you know the rules. You see what that feller just did? He sticked me and hooked me and elbowed and pushed me and laughed all about it. But if I go over and give him the knucks, I'll be sitting there in the box. It seems to me that you only see when the other team's taking the shots.
What's up, you hosers? Welcome to another episode of the Unlucky Puckheads podcast. My name is PA Jets Fan, and I am joined, as I always am, by my brother CK. How you doing?
Very good, PA Jets. How's it going, man?
Pretty good. You want to hear my TSN impression?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Toronto, Toronto, Toronto. Marlowe, Tavares, Matthews, Nylander, Toronto, Leafs, Toronto, Toronto, Toronto. Seriously, they will not shut up about Toronto. And I guess it's warranted. They came out of the gate fast, but man, it's really annoying on our broadcasts.
I bet. But hey, you're absolutely right. It's definitely something they are earning because they came out on fire. I think it's 5-1 right now, so they're not going to complain.
Yeah, I mean that they're a scoring powerhouse, and they're definitely a beast in the East, and they're just one of many things about this early NHL season that are just upside down. Really, when you take a look at the standings, nobody is where you'd think they would be. I mean, we got Carolina on top of the Metropolitan by 3 points. That's as of tonight. We beat them tonight, so we kept them from getting any more. But, you got Toronto on top of the Atlantic, followed closely by Boston. Over in the Western Conference in our division, the Central, Nashville, Chicago, and Colorado are the top 3. Followed very closely by everybody else. And then when you look at the Pacific, Anaheim has a clear lead, and then Calgary and Vancouver are tied for second place. So everything's really kind of up in the air right now. Teams are still finding their feet, and I guess everybody's still waiting for that correction of the season. What do you think?
I would definitely agree with that. I think there's some teams that this might be a little bit of a fluke, and I think there's some teams that it's not actually at all. I did watch the Carolina game. We're so used to Carolina not being quite so hot anymore, but boy, did they play a good game.
They do.
The one that they played against the Wild there yesterday for me was just their defensive structure is really, really, really strong. And the Wild had 9 shots in the first 2 penalties. Now, granted, the Wild came out of the gate extremely slow offensively. These games should have been 9-1, 10-1 easy if it wasn't for Dubnyk, who's been abs-freaking-tastic. He looks amazing back there in net. Man, if it wasn't for him, the Wild would be buried right now. But that game, Carolina looked sharp. Their offense was flying. They were skating. The defense was really holding the blue line really, really well. The Wild could do nothing. I'm not surprised the Jets beat them. The Jets obviously have a little more, we'll call it, physical presence on the offense.
And offensive firepower.
Exactly. And so that doesn't really surprise me. But, I mean, you saw the game. Did Carolina look structured and good?
Oh, yeah. Carolina looks dangerous. And that's the thing. You mentioned the shot differential in the game with you guys. It was kind of a repeat of that tonight, and it was eerily similar where, Brissois really bailed us out hard. There were a lot of mistakes that were made, and Carolina took advantage of them hard. And, they kept us off the shot board too, and that's not an easy thing to do. So there were a lot of similarities between the two games.
Yeah, and their star power is working for them. I don't know if it's new coaching, if they have developed a new structure. They must have, because they do not look like Carolina last year.
I believe they have a new coach. I can't think of the name right now, but I do believe they are restructured.
I don't know, but he looks hilarious. I laughed about him a couple of times. I don't know why, but he just has he has a kind of goofy face, not like Muppet face, but something along those lines. He looks different. Nothing wrong with that.
Okay,
doesn't matter.
So with coaches, I always like to say there's a scale between Muppet and supervillain. Where does he fall on that scale?
Oh, he's supervillain, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he leans supervillain. I can see him, rubbing his hands together and going, good. Yeah, that's the his look. So that works for him, I guess.
All right, you have any other words on how the Wild have done so far?
Well, for sure. obviously we had mentioned before some players that I wanted to see have a good start to the season, and surprisingly, the players that I called out are doing very well. And the one player that I said needed to pick up his game hasn't yet. So Coyle, Granlund, Zucker look great. They're all skating. I wish Granlund would shoot more. He's still doing that thing where he keeps wanting to pass or get fancy. He needs to just shoot the puck. So Granlund could still do some improving. Zucker is great. Zucker came out a little slow in game 1, but since then he's been flying. He realized his game 1 was really weak. Suter looks great. The whole defensive core looks good. Spurgeon's skating really, really well right now. He's been moving up in the offense a little more because he's more comfortable with his D partner now. A lot of times they have Dumba out there with him, or sometimes Brodeen. So it's a good balance for Spurge. He can actually move up a little bit with those two behind him. And Dubnyk, of course, is fantastic. Just unbelievable. He is having like the best start of any season since he's been in Minnesota Wild. And it's... Oh, thank goodness, too, because we would not have any points. I can't believe, we do not deserve as a team in Minnesota 4 points right now. We deserve none. Dubnyk deserves 8, and the rest of the team deserves almost none, besides maybe Zucker. But Coyle came out strong. Zucker came out strong. Granlund's skating really well. Koivu's doing this thing. Parisi looks fantastic. Eric Stahl had a good game 2, I think it was. He was a little weak in the others, but he's looking okay. And Niederreiter just doesn't have it still, which breaks my heart because I love Niederreiter. But he's getting to the front of the net, but he's just not getting the pucks through the goalie, or he's not even really getting quality shots. And I don't know if he just needs to maybe adjust a little bit, and maybe he's getting too close, which he does do sometimes. But they look good, and they will definitely improve. This is obviously a slow start, not the start they wanted, but the good news is Minnesota's been hanging on by their claws. They have taken games into overtime that they really shouldn't have had that chance to go into overtime. Of course, the Chicago game was brilliant. It was, I think, one of the most exciting games I've seen for the Wild in a long time. It was. But then again, we turn the corner and we play Carolina, and we're beating Carolina 3-2 with a minute and a half left in the third period. They do the same thing, pull the goaltender, score, and then they win in overtime. So I guess we deserve that for winning the game we didn't deserve to win against Chicago.
That's Minnesota sports.
Yeah, it is. It is. And the good news is they scored 2 goals in the first 2 games. Now they've scored 6 in the past 2. So the offense is starting to pick up. Zucker's starting to move. It's really funny I keep saying Zucker, but he's our superstar. He's going to be, and he's going to have probably 30 goals, I think, this season easy, the way that he's playing, if he can keep it up and stay healthy. So
the Zook.
Yeah, we have definite bright spots in our team, but we got a lot of improvement to do if we want to make the playoffs again in this Central Division, which is going to be murder.
Yeah, and when you look at the standings right now, I mean, everybody is within a couple points of each other in the Central, so it's... Man, we're in for a meat grinder.
I think it's going to be one of those seasons where it's like that for all 80-plus games.
Yeah, it definitely will be. I mean, when the lowest person right now, or the lowest team, right now is St. Louis, and they're only a few points behind the actual leader. We're in for a real treat. So a lot of good hockey coming up, and
I don't like the flavor of that treat.
It tastes like sadness. But let's move away from...
Does anxiety have a flavor?
Anxiety?
Yeah. I'm thinking it's probably like bitter metallic. That's what
something like that. Yeah. Something like that. Just maybe like something Russian, because I'm pretty sure that's what they use the vodka for. But let's move on, because I really got to get this out of my system. I really got to talk about the Nashville game. And I was tweeting you, or not tweeting you, but texting you through that entire game.
Yeah, you seemed really happy.
Oh, I was just brilliant. I was just a ray of sunshine.
Good calls, ref. Good calls.
Really? Okay, so through the first 2 periods, 8 penalties were handed out to the Jets. 8 penalties. One of which, I guess, accounts for 2, the double minor. And then we were 5-on-3 for about a minute and a half through that game. So, okay, the first thing I want to tackle here is, why were we the only ones getting to penalties? Because don't get me wrong, the Jets were playing pretty bad with their sticks, and the stick infraction thing is coming back from a few years ago. And we deserved a lot of them. You know, I can't look at that and say, no, that's not a penalty on the Jets. But I can look at that and say, how is that not a penalty on the Predators? Because they'd slash, they'd come up and hit people in the numbers. I remember I sent you that streamable of Salamaki hitting Ehlers in the numbers right after the whistle. The ref is standing right there, no call. And I mean, it really made me angry, just because we lost that game because of that second period and because we spent so much time killing the penalties. Well, Nashville didn't have to do anything. So when we had our guys come out in the third, our first two lines were gassed. Our third line was trying the best to carry us with, Tanev and Lowry especially, but they can't do it by themselves. And that second period where, 16 minutes were spent, 4 and 5, just absolutely destroyed us. Terrible officiating. And man, I just had to get that out of my system.
No, and that's fine. And I've watched actually a lot of NHL games, more than I usually do. Not just because of the podcast, but just because, I don't know, I had hockey fever all summer long. It was a bad one. I really needed hockey back, So I have watched a lot of games, and that's not the only game I've seen that in. Minnesota did catch quite a few penalties during the Chicago game that I thought were completely unwarranted, and you nailed it. They're all stick infraction penalties, and it's like a tap on the glove, and they're calling that slash right now.
Yep.
And for some reason, they seem to do that at least a little bit, like the first 5 or 10 games of the season. I don't know if they're trying to get the message across, we're not going to allow that, or if they're, like you said, they're kind of coming down hard on that again. I get it. However, it is very, very common for a player who's back checking or who is pressuring the puck carrier to give the stick a tap, or to lift the stick, or to tap the glove. All right, like if you're reaching around a player one-handed with your stick and you tap them on the hand, I'm sorry, that's not a slash. You're not going to hurt anybody doing that. A slash is two-handed. And so I hate it when players reach around and tap and reach like they should when they're floor checking or back checking, and the refs call that a penalty. Okay, if you wrap your arm around him, okay, well then it might be interference, might be holding. But if you're just tapping them on the glove or tapping them on the stick just to kind of get in their head, I'm sorry, that's part of the game. Don't call a penalty on that. You're slowing the game down. You're giving one team an unfair advantage. So maybe they'll slack off here in another 3 or 4 games like they do every year. I hope they do.
And yeah, that's kind of what I'm predicting, because last year it was the same thing where people were just getting fed up with all the stick infraction penalties. I think it'll normalize, a little bit as we get further into the season, but just it costing us an entire game like that was not. I'm not okay with that, and I will hold a grudge against those refs.
Well, I don't know why it's not. I think it's not a slash. All right, unless you do like a full swing with one hand.
Yeah.
If you have 2 hands on your stick and you slash, okay, I'll take that as a slash because you can really put some power behind it. But even a professional NHL player, if you're only 2 feet above the guy's glove and you're doing it one-handed and you hit him in the hand, I'm sorry, that doesn't hurt. I play hockey. You can't. There's no leverage there to actually cause pain with something that's that far away. It's too weak. It's not going to hurt anything. It's nothing, and they need to back off on it bad. But we have seen some definite penalty-worthy things, and I think you had something in mind about that.
Oh, yes. And, I have no part in this fight, but it was a dirty hit, full stop. Matheson, I believe it was last night, took out Pettersson really hard, actually physically threw him down to the ice. He was back behind the goaltender in their own zone. Pettersson came up and kind of gave Matheson a little bump, or was it vice versa? One of them bumped the other, and they skated in behind the net, and Matheson really put Pettersson up against the board hard and then grabbed him and just threw him down. The ref was standing right next to him, witnessed the entire thing, and did not call it.
And he waited like a couple of seconds because he was down on the ice.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't even remember what his mother's name was. I mean, the way that he threw him down was, and the right word is, violent. It was very violent. He grabbed his jersey, threw him down in the ice. He bounced his head off the ice. Obvious concussion. I mean, instant. You knew it. And the poor kid's head was spinning. He could barely even get up on his skates. Okay, there is such a thing as finishing a check, but number one, it was in the numbers. And number two, he finished his check and then body slammed the kid. Come on. That is as dirty as it can get.
No, but we have to call those, glove tap stick infractions. Has every ref in the league turned into Francois Saint Laurent? Seriously. But I mean, it's one of those things that I look at it and I when I watched the streamable of it, I said out loud, even though there was no one around me, I just said, I'm blind, I'm deaf, I want to be a ref. And it rings true this season.
Oh, there's that, maybe it was against you guys last year where Zucker had a partial breakaway. It was either against you guys or the Blackhawks. But Zucker got a partial breakaway, and he got tripped up. They didn't call a penalty, and Zucker was yelling because he said he got tripped. The other player's stick was in his skates, and the ref was laughing about it because Zucker looks down, and the player's stick is still in Zucker's skate. It actually went through the blade of his skate. So it was like, if you need any more proof that there is a trip there, there's the player's stick still in Zucker's skate. So it's like, I don't know what the disparity of the calls from game to game sometimes even. I mean, sometimes the Wild are the beneficiary of some pretty junk calls. And of course, me being a fan of hockey, I'll yell about it. If I see a good clean goal or a good clean hit, that's what I call it. Good goal. It doesn't, if it was the other team, hey, if it was a beautiful play, I'm a fan of hockey first. But these penalties are they're driving me crazy. And you can just imagine what that does to the players, too. You go into a game with a certain mindset, and you're 20 minutes in, and you've only been on the ice 2 minutes because you've been doing a penalty kill the entire time. Man, think about what that does to those players. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do want to be clear, that actually reminds me here, you and I are the same way in that we're not typically the ones you'll find yelling about refs. We're not typically the ones who will get angry over, a lot of missed calls. Like, even in that Nashville game, if it was one or two calls on us where Nashville didn't get called, I would have been fine with it. It's whatever. It's hockey. The refs are humans, too. They can't be completely perfect all the time. But, there are situations where they should actually be able to call something. They should be... I'm trying to figure out how to put this. They should be aware of what's going on around them. But it just seems like they're sometimes not. And I will call that out when it happens. I'm not sitting here whining about the refs, but I am sitting here, I think, pretty justifiably criticizing them.
And I think when it comes to refs, too, the other thing I don't like is that I don't think that the line judge on the opposing zone should be able to call a penalty. Because a lot of times, you know what I mean? They'll call a hold or a hook or something, and they're almost clear on the other side of the ice. And the two closer officials didn't call it, but the one from all the way, from 200 feet away calls a penalty. See, I don't think that's right, because he doesn't have the vantage point to call those penalties properly. That happens a lot, and then you look on the replay, and it'll be like a hold. And the guy reached around with his stick and poked the puck a little bit. Hey, guess what? That's fine. That's legal. He got a hold of the puck. But then the line judge from the other side of the ice calls a holding penalty because that's what he saw. See, I don't like that either. There's not the right perspective there. Same thing sometimes with no goals. It annoys a lot of people with goal review, but at least it gives them a chance to get that stuff right too. And in the same category, I don't mean to talk too much about this, but the early whistles in shots. Same thing. Just because the ref isn't in the right perspective, it happened a couple times last game, the Minnesota game, where the puck was not even close to being covered. But it was by the goalie, and the ref blew it because he didn't see the puck. Well, Parisi or Niederreiter or Granlund can score from there very easily if it's not covered. So, and that happens to every team. I would use Minnesota as an example, of course, but that happens a lot. Early whistles, and the goalie doesn't have it. And that kind of gets old, too, all because of ref perspective.
Yeah, I remember getting really ticked off about that last season. I don't remember the even who we were playing, but I remember the puck was loose underneath the goalie, and you could see it, and they called it dead. But It's just stuff that gets under your skin. But it's hockey. You really can't change it all that much. And I don't want to whine too much about the refs, but
No, it's not really whining, though. It's just,
yeah,
what's the problem with just waiting a second or two to blow the whistle? Because if the goalie has it, he has it. And if they forcibly poke it through him, well, then you can review it and say, I meant to blow the whistle. I mean, that rule is in place. I would rather you just wait a second or two.
yeah. Make sure the play's dead before
yeah,
it's
make
actually
make
called
sure the play is dead. Skate yourself around the net a little bit and make sure you don't see it. What's the problem? Just if something happens, you can fix it. We have rules in place to do that.
Yeah, and again, I just want to put it out there because I know there's, it's a hockey fandom, so the people out there are going to be like, oh, you're just, whining about the refs because it didn't go your way, and I'm just trying to make it crystal clear that that's, I'm a hockey fan, I know how hockey works, and, I'm going to call it out when I see it, but...
Oh, yeah, I'll do the same thing if it's for the other team that's playing Minnesota. I don't care. It's just...
Yeah.
It needs to be fair all across the league.
Oh, one more thing I want to bring up about the refs when we move on, and I just cracked up when this happened. I don't know if you saw it, but I think it was like the 6th or 7th penalty in that Nashville game, and Tyler Myers goes skating up to the ref, clapping all the way, a little sarcastic clap. The ref gave him a misconduct for it. 10-minute misconduct. I just wanted to bring that up because that was hilarious.
Hey, that stuff is where the entertainment in hockey can come in. Just a little extracurricular.
And, I could argue that being a misconduct because it's hockey. That's why it's fun. But, I'll leave that one go because that's an entirely different discussion that we can have at some other point. But moving on from there, let's move on to some brighter news for some teams. The New Jersey Devils are undefeated. Wow, they are a threat this year.
What?
Man,
that's crazy, right?
Yeah, they just...
Now, they've only played half the games that everybody else has played. I don't know how they pull that off every year. They don't, but I don't like. Seriously, it's like there's always like a team in the NHL that's played like 8 or 9 games, and I don't know if it's because of their location or what, but the Devils have played like 3. It's like, come on, that doesn't seem quite fair. But I pick on them a little bit because that does happen a lot with scheduling and with their arena, so they kind of have to do it that way. But it is funny because they always do seem to have a few games in hand, but then they pay for it usually in the middle of the season. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But actually, I did watch about 12 minutes of a Devils game. They look fantastic.
Yeah, they do. How's that Taylor Hall trade is looking better by the year.
Yeah,
better
yeah,
by
it
the
really
day.
does.
They Edmonton as usual getting fleeced. But from there, we can jump to another bright spot for a team. Joe Pavelski got 700 points.
Ooh, go Joe.
He's a guy that I've always liked. I don't hear his name much. You really don't hear his name much, but he's such an integral part of that San Jose Sharks team. And he works really hard every shift. If you watch the Shark games, he's given it his all the time. So it's a great milestone for him, a great milestone for the Sharks. We'll have to see if they can avoid crashing and burning before, the conference finals this year, but we'll see what happens with them.
I don't think they will. I think they'll be strong. I hope. I'll put it that way, because I don't mind the Sharks. I do hope they make the playoffs. I think they deserve it.
You know what? There are a few franchises in the NHL right now that I think deserve a cup more than them. Maybe St. Louis. St. Louis is due for one, but I think San Jose is pretty high on that list.
No, I can skip St. Louis, but San Jose I'll take.
Man, it's a capital situation with me where it's just I'm past the point of them being a division rival. I just can't hate them anymore because I just feel so bad for them. At least with, the Jets don't have a cup yet, but we haven't been in the NHL for that long, really. So, if you separate the franchises, so. But,
no, see, that doesn't work for me because, our cousin down in Florida is like a diehard St. Louis Blues fan. And I just like it to be able to say that both our teams are terrible. And so I don't like it when one of our teams is fantastic and the other isn't, because then, we have, bragging rights. And I kind of like it that we're both always in the same pool where we hit the playoffs and can't go anywhere.
That is, misery loves company, I guess. So, especially in hockey. But we'll move on from the depressing note to, I think the final point for tonight. We'll keep this
Tastes
one
like Russia or anxiety? Russian anxiety.
Yeah, Russian anxiety. Isn't that nuke fueled? Something like that.
Hey, here, I give you nuke.
You have nuke.
I like you. You have nuke.
But, okay.
Here is a bottle of vodka and nuke. You have nuke.
Kill submarine for a motherland. But okay, so Aho, I wanted to bring up Aho because even though I don't think he registered any points tonight, but he is a great player, and this is the Carolina Hurricanes Sebastian Aho, not the New York Islanders Sebastian Aho. He now has, I believe it's 10 points in 6 games as of tonight. And I know we already talked about a little bit about Carolina, but I just wanted to bring him up because I like to kind of pick out some individual players as we go throughout the season, and just put my mic, sorry about that, and just take a look at how they've been doing and really give them a little bit of praise, because especially with a team like Carolina, they're not getting a lot of praise from some of the mainstream hockey outlets. So got to give him props, man. He looks good.
Oh my goodness, Carolina isn't getting attention. Say it isn't so. Really. And it's, you know what? What, you enjoyed that?
Yes, I did.
Well, I mean, there's so many, what teams are in the NHL that hardly get any mention. Like, there's some, people that call themselves NHL fans that don't even realize some teams exist. Now, granted, Hurricanes probably isn't one of those because in recent history they won the Cup. But it still, within the last, so many years. But still, I think this team, when a team comes out of the gate like this and can maintain that skill, especially with Aho did look fantastic. Man, that kid can skate and shoot, and, well, he do pretty much everything. Then they deserve the mention. And especially where they're sitting right now, if they keep this up, then they're not going to be able to ignore him again. In another 5-6 games, if this keeps up, Carolina is going to be a common name.
And, I hope so. They're a team that I really like, and they earned a lot more of my respect this year for bringing back the Whalers jerseys. I know some people aren't a huge fan of that, but they're a team I want to see succeed, and that helped a little bit. But, I just kind of want to go back to the point you made earlier. There's some teams that some NHL fans don't even really know exist. Who are you exactly thinking of there?
Well, should I say the invisible teams?
Yeah.
You know who they are. I mean, I tell you, it's okay. Everybody knows the Canadian teams, but I guarantee you the Senators are half forgotten. And,
yeah,
and Arizona Coyotes. People just realize that they're like an AHL team that NHL teams get free points off of.
Haven't they relocated yet?
No, they haven't relocated yet.
They should be in Winnipeg.
Everybody knows about Tampa Bay Lightning, but everybody forgets about the Florida Panthers.
I did.
Right?
That's funny because I forgot about the Florida Panthers in this discussion.
I told you. See? I'm telling you. Same thing. And then, you talk about, hey, you'll say, hey, I'm a big NHL fan. St. Louis Blues are playing New York. Oh, the Rangers. Who? Oh, yeah, no, the Islanders. They're playing the Islanders. Oh, I forgot about the Islanders. Yeah, that's right. It's because the Islanders has such confusion right now. You say New York, immediately the first thing I think of is Rangers, which is normal. But then hey, Islanders are up there too. And it's just, there are some teams that just seem to, I don't know, they're just not really, the household names.
Really, I have no place to talk because it's Winnipeg. I feel like
who?
If you went and yeah, right. If you went and asked, if I walked outside right now and found a hockey fan and asked them to name all the Canadian teams, I guarantee you Winnipeg would probably not be on their list. So I really have no place to talk.
The way things have been in the NHL recently, I wonder if they would remember Calgary.
That's very true. They're another one that is kind of light on attention. They really haven't done much since that it was in goal a few years back during was that the playoffs or the finals? One of them. But they really haven't done a whole lot since then. Ever since, why did I just forget? Iggy. Ever since Iggy got traded, I feel like they kind of fell off the map.
Well, Iginla and probably Kiprusoff. Because that was one of those examples of a goaltender stealing way more games than that team deserved to win.
Oh, man, Kipper. I actually had forgotten about Kipper until you just mentioned him. I won a Stanley Cup in a GM mode with him. I traded for him as the Jets, and we won the Stanley Cup with him. So he's on my good side.
Well, congratulations for really nothing.
Doing nothing, right? Oh, but okay. I wanted to end off the night just to have. We talked a little bit. You talked a little bit about You talked a little bit about the Wild players. Brain, you have failed me for the last time. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about
that's not true.
You're right. But I wanted to talk a little bit about the Jets players, just to end off. There's one name that I really wanted to bring up, and there's a lot of controversy about him in Winnipeg right now, and I am on one side of the argument. That's Brian Little. He's our second line center right now, centering Ehlers and Laine, and he looked good tonight, but he hasn't looked good in any of their games. He scored tonight because Josh Morrissey set him up really well. And there's a conversation going on right now within the Winnipeg fan base as to whether he is a good center for Patrick Laine. Patrick Laine is obviously somebody that we have to lean on to be the major goal-scoring guy. We need to lean on him to be the Rocket Richard type of guy. And a big part of that is going to be, the center that he plays with and whether they work well together. And Litz and Patty really don't at all. You don't see a lot of great passing going between the two. And I just wanted to bring it up just because there's been so much argument about it. But the data point I set out is that when you look at the point that we got Stastny last year, and look at Laine's, chances and goals before we got Stastny and after we got Stastny.
Yeah.
And it's pretty clear what we're looking at here. And I love Brian Little. He's a guy that's been around. I think he's actually the longest standing member of the team. And his heart is here. He plays his soul out here. He's a great guy. But a second line center for Patrick Laine? Maybe not so much. We have the metrics to say that he might not be that, but again, with everything for me, I'm not a GM, I'm not a coach, I'm not even a scout. I'm a fan, and I don't know what goes in on that locker room. I don't know, how their relationship, in real life is. So, I can only say what I see, and it's just that I don't really see them working together that well. I'm happy to be proven wrong, but...
Well, maybe we'll have to see. And those are good points. Then I would also ask, how in the world, especially how you're playing right now, I know because of penalties and everything, but still, because I believe he is in the penalty kill, but how in the world is Wheels a negative player right now?
Really, a big part of our struggles right now is that our defense sucks. It really sucks bad. Myers has regressed. Trouba has regressed. Sherratt is the defensive liability that he's always been. Bufflin is Bufflin. He's going to make mistakes. There's very few high points in the defense. Surprisingly, I think Morrow looks pretty good. Morrissey is obviously the greatest defenseman I think the organization has ever had, going back to the Thrashers. So they're like the two really high points of it. I'm all for freeing Sami Niku. I want to see him come up, but that's a big part of it. Is just that I can't tell you. There's been like 5 or 6 breakaways these past few games because the defender has bobbled the puck over their stick or had not got a pass that they should have, and one of the opposing team players just darts through, grabs it, and has split the defense and has all the ice to himself. And that's what's majorly happening right now. Obviously Hellebuck and Brossoit are really bailing us out hard, but it's not enough, and we're losing games because of that.
Yeah. Also, let me just point out a fun little fact, and that's that the Canadiens beat the Penguins in a shootout. So that's always funny. Just a little tidbit I want to throw in there.
I can't be happy for the Habs though. I really can't. I don't like the Habs that much. I don't know why. I guess just the Canadian thing, but I'd be rooting for the Pens in that situation. Please don't kill me. But I think that's pretty much all we have to cover tonight. It's been a really, really weird start to the season, so we'll have to see what happens within these next 5 or so games before we cast again, and I think we'll get a better idea of what exactly is going on in the NHL at that point in time.
Yeah, I agree. And Minnesota, of course, they played 2 games and had a 4-day break. Beginning of the season, 2 games and then a 4-day break. You knew they were going to come out super slow, and they did. But they play tomorrow and I believe Tuesday too, so they got a back-to-back right away. So let's hope their legs are underneath them tomorrow.
Right. Oh, one more question. Okay, I thought of this earlier, but I haven't brought it up yet. And this is going to be a surprise to you. This isn't on any of the outlines or anything.
All right.
So we talked a lot about refs that suck. Well, how about refs that don't suck? Who is your favorite ref?
They're not in the NHL.
Wes McCauley?
I'd actually have to think about that, who my favorite ref was, honestly.
I just wanted to throw it out there to see if you had an immediate answer for that, because Wes McCauley's mine.
I don't. And, I probably would lean to Wes McCauley as well. The reason why I would say that, though, is he's a good ref, but then I also like his rapport with the players, too.
Yeah.
He has really good interactions with the players, and he's one of the few refs that'll he'll skate over and explain something to a coach who wants an explanation if he has the time. And usually when he goes over and explains it, that's it. His word is law, and that's done. And so, yeah, I probably would say him, too, but I'd probably have to think about it to be sure.
We'll come back to this on the next cast, and
That sounds
I'll
good.
go ahead and take us out. How about that? If there's nothing else you want to talk about?
I think that's good for now. I think we're good.
Alrighty then. Well, this has been the Unlucky Puckheads podcast. It is October 15th today, and we've discussed the last week. You'll see us again this coming weekend. You can follow us on Twitter at UPH Podcast. You can also look at our website, which is unluckypuckheads.com, where we post blogs, these episodes, and we also do some 5-minute looks at teams, just some little snack-sized things in case you don't have time to listen to the entire cast. You can also follow us on Facebook, Unlucky Puckheads there, and we hope you do. Like us, share us, tell your friends, and we'll see you guys next time. Take off, eh?
Unlucky Puckheads, where everything's made up and the points don't matter, just like Patrick Kane's point record in civil lawsuits.
Oh, wow, that was low. All right, we'll take us out. See you guys next time.
Later, guys.